The old courthouse in Cedar Falls, Iowa, had seen almost every kind of heartbreak. Divorce papers signed with shaking hands, custody battles that left children crying in the hallways, families celebrating adoptions with balloons and photographs. But on that cold October morning, something different hung in the air. Silence. It wasn't the ordinary silence of a courtroom waiting for the judge. It was the silence of people who already knew the ending. 5-year-old Lily Carter sat alone on a wooden bench, her tiny legs swinging above the polished floor without touching it. She wore a faded blue cardigan over a yellow dress that had clearly belonged to another child. One shoe was white, the other pink, and neither fit very well. Pressed tightly. Against her chest was a small, stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. Its fur had long since turned gray from years of being hugged. Whenever she became frightened, she whispered into its ear, "I'm okay. We're okay." Across the room, social worker Emily Sanders watched her with a heavy heart. Emily had worked for Child Protective Services for 15 years. She had seen children rescued from terrible homes. She had watched babies find loving families. She had celebrated hundreds of successful adoptions. But Lily's case was different. Lily had already been placed with 6 foster families in less than 3 years. Every placement ended the same way. Not because Lily misbehaved, not because she was violent, not because she was disrespectful. She simply loved too hard. Every foster mother became mom. Every foster father became dad. Every goodbye shattered her heart all over again. One family wrote in their report, "She cries every night and asks if we'll love her forever. We can't handle the emotional attachment." Emily had wanted to tear the report into pieces. How could loving someone too much become a reason to reject a child? Lily looked up at Emily. "Is today my forever family?" Emily forced herself to smile. "We're going to talk with the judge today." Lily nodded as though she understood. She didn't. Children rarely understood words like guardianship, parental rights, or state custody. What they understood was much simpler. Someone wanted them, or someone didn't. The courtroom doors opened. "All rise." Judge Harold Whitmore entered quietly. At 72 years old, he had spent over 3 decades serving in family court. People respected him because he never forgot that every case file represented a real human life. He noticed Lily immediately. Most children hid behind adults. She sat alone. That image stayed with him. Everyone took their seats. Emily stood. "Your Honor, this is the matter of Lily Carter." The judge adjusted his glasses. "I've reviewed the file." He paused, then slowly turned another page. Another, and another. Each page seemed heavier than the last. Emergency removal, neglect, abandonment, failed placements, psychological evaluations, recommendations, no relatives available, no adoptive inquiries, nothing. He finally looked toward Emily. "Is there any new information?" Emily swallowed. "No, Your Honor." "No biological relatives?" "We contacted 34 individuals connected to the family." "No responses?" 2 declined immediately. "The others couldn't be located." Judge Whitmore looked at Lily. She was quietly brushing her rabbit's fur with one finger, completely unaware that adults were deciding where she would spend the rest of her childhood. "Lily!" She looked up. "Yes, sir?" He smiled gently. "How are you today?" She thought carefully before answering. "I'm being brave." Several people lowered their heads. The judge cleared his throat. "And why are you being brave?" She smiled with heartbreaking innocence. "Because Mommy said brave girls don't cry." No one spoke. After a moment, she added softly, "She promised she'd come back after buying groceries." Emily closed her eyes. That promise had been made nearly 3 years earlier. Lily still believed it. Judge Whitmore looked down at the paperwork again, buying himself a few seconds to regain composure. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded older than before. "The court recognizes that every reasonable effort has been made to reunify the child with family." Emily nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." "The agency recommends permanent state guardianship, while continuing efforts to locate an adoptive placement." "Yes." The judge removed his glasses. He had signed orders like this hundreds of times. But today, something felt wrong. He slowly looked around the courtroom. Attorneys, court staff, police officers, observers, people from the community. Then he asked a question that wasn't written anywhere in the law. "Does anyone here," his voice echoed softly across the silent room, "want this little girl?" Every face froze. A young attorney looked down. A deputy folded his hands. Someone coughed nervously. 30 seconds passed. No one answered. Lily looked around hopefully. One by one, she realized nobody was standing. Her tiny shoulders slumped. She hugged her rabbit tighter. Barely above a whisper, she said, "I knew nobody would." The words struck every heart in the room. Judge Whitmore closed the file slowly. He hated what he was about to do. Then, a chair scraped loudly against the wooden floor. Every head turned toward the back of the courtroom. An elderly man, dressed in a neatly pressed but decades-old gray suit, struggled to his feet with the help of a polished oak cane. His white hair framed a weathered face marked by time, loss, and quiet dignity. His eyes never left Lily. He raised one trembling hand. "Your Honor." The room fell completely silent. "My name is Samuel Brooks. I've never met this little girl." He paused, emotion tightening his voice. "But I know exactly what it feels like. I'd pray that someone, anyone, would choose you." The courtroom held its breath. And in that single moment, no one realized that the quiet old man standing in the back was about to change not only Lily's life, but his own forever. The courtroom remained frozen. No one spoke. No one even shifted in their seats. Every pair of eyes was fixed on the elderly man standing quietly in the back. Judge Harold Whitmore leaned forward. "Mr. Brooks, would you please come forward?" Samuel Brooks nodded politely and began walking down the center aisle. Every step was slow, measured by the rhythm of his wooden cane against the courthouse floor. Tap, tap, tap. When he reached the front of the courtroom, he removed his worn brown hat and held it respectfully against his chest. Lily stared at him. He didn't look like the people she had imagined would become a parent. He had wrinkles. His hands trembled. His suit looked older than she was. But his smile felt warm. For the first time that morning, Lily didn't feel afraid. Judge Whitmore studied him carefully. "Mr. Brooks, you said you've never met this child." "That's correct, Your Honor. And yet you stood up." Samuel nodded. "Yes." "May I ask why?" Samuel looked at Lily before answering. "Because someone should have stood up for me." 70 years ago, the courtroom became perfectly still. I spent my childhood moving from one orphanage to another. He smiled sadly. I stopped counting after the 7th one. My parents died in a car accident when I was 4. No grandparents. No relatives. No one wanted the responsibility. He looked around the room. "I know what it feels like to wait every birthday, hoping someone will choose you." His voice grew quieter. "And I know what it feels like when no one ever does." Emily Sanders covered her mouth. She had read thousands of case files. But hearing those words from someone who had survived that, loneliness made them painfully real. Samuel continued. "When I turned 18, I walked out of the orphanage carrying one suitcase." He chuckled softly. The suitcase wasn't even mine. It belonged to another boy who had outgrown it. A few people smiled through tears. I slept in bus stations. I washed dishes. I worked construction. I served in the army. I saved every dollar I could. Eventually, I opened a small furniture repair shop. Judge Whitmore interrupted gently. "You owned Brooks Restoration?" Samuel looked surprised. "You've heard of it?" The judge smiled. "My wife still owns one of your handmade rocking chairs." A few people in the courtroom exchanged surprised glances. The little repair shop had quietly become one of the town's most respected woodworking businesses. Samuel shrugged modestly. "I never became rich, but I earned enough, and I never stopped hoping I'd have a family." His smile faded. "I met the love of my life when I was 38. Her name was Margaret. She loved children. They dreamed of adopting someday. But before they could begin the process, Margaret was diagnosed with cancer. She passed away 3 years later." Samuel lowered his eyes. "I've lived alone ever since." Even Judge Whitmore struggled to maintain his composure. Samuel slowly opened the worn leather briefcase he carried. I know what everyone is thinking. He removed several folders. They're wondering how an old man thinks he can raise a little girl. He handed the paperwork to the bailiff. Inside were medical examinations, financial statements, a fully paid home, retirement savings, a trust fund, letters from physicians confirming excellent health, a long-term guardianship plan, life insurance. Everything was neatly organized. Judge Whitmore looked astonished. You prepared all this? Samuel nodded. 6 years ago. You expected this day? I prayed for it. Emily looked confused. You've been waiting 6 years? Samuel smiled. Every Tuesday. Every Thursday. I've sat in the back of this courtroom. I never wanted to interfere. I simply waited. The room erupted in whispers. For 6 years? Samuel nodded. I told myself, if I ever saw a child who truly had no one, I would stand. Emily wiped tears from her face. Why didn't you tell anyone? He smiled gently. Because I wasn't looking for just any child. I was waiting for the child who believed no one would ever choose them. Lily's little voice interrupted. That's me? Samuel turned toward her. Yes. She held her rabbit tightly. You'd really take me home? I would. You promise? I promise. She looked uncertain. Everybody promises. The words landed like stones. Samuel knelt carefully despite the pain in his knees. He looked directly into her eyes. Lily, I'm too old to waste time making promises I can't keep. If God gives me 1 year, I'll spend that year loving you. If he gives me 10, I'll spend 10. And if he gives me 20, I'll thank him every single morning. Tears streamed down Emily's face. Lily stared at him for a long moment, then asked the question no adult expected. When you get to heaven, will you still be my grandpa? Samuel's lips trembled. He gently placed his hand over hers. My dear girl, love doesn't stop at heaven's gate. It just waits for us there. Lily suddenly dropped her rabbit. She ran across the courtroom, throwing both arms around Samuel's neck. I choose you too. No one could hold back their tears anymore. Even the court reporter had stopped typing. Judge Whitmore quietly removed his glasses to wipe his eyes. But before anyone could celebrate, the courtroom doors burst open. A sharply dressed woman hurried inside carrying a thick file. Wait! Everyone turned. She looked directly at the judge. Your Honor, I'm attorney Rebecca Collins. I represent someone who has just come forward claiming to be Lily Carter's biological grandmother. The courtroom gasped. Lily slowly loosened her grip on Samuel. Confusion filled her little face. Samuel's smile disappeared. The hearing that had seemed over had only just begun. The courtroom erupted into whispers. Judge Harold Whitmore raised his gavel. Order in the court. The room gradually fell silent, though the tension remained. Attorney Rebecca Collins hurried toward the front, clutching a thick file to her chest. She looked slightly out of breath, as if she had driven across the state without stopping. Your Honor, she said, I sincerely apologize for interrupting these proceedings. The judge nodded. You mentioned someone claiming to be Lily Carter's biological grandmother? Yes, Your Honor. Where is she? Rebecca glanced toward the courtroom doors. She's outside. A moment later, the doors opened slowly. An elderly woman stepped inside. She looked to be in her late 60s. Her silver hair was tied neatly into a bun, and her expensive navy blue coat contrasted sharply with Samuel Brooks' old gray suit. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't her appearance. It was the guilt written across her face. She stopped the moment she saw Lily. Tears immediately filled her eyes. Oh, my sweet girl. Lily looked confused. She took one small step behind Samuel. Who is she? Emily Sanders knelt beside her. Lily? This woman says she's your grandmother. Lily frowned. I have a grandma? The little girl's innocent question pierced every heart in the room. The woman covered her mouth to keep from crying. Yes, she whispered. You do. Judge Whitmore motioned for her to come forward. Please state your name. My name is Eleanor Carter. And you claim to be the child's maternal grandmother? Yes. The judge adjusted his glasses. Our records show that child. Protective Services attempted to contact every known relative. Eleanor lowered her head. I know. They couldn't find me. Why not? She hesitated before answering. Because I had moved overseas to care for my husband after he suffered a stroke. She handed several documents to the bailiff. Passport records, medical reports, hospital records from Scotland, death certificates. My husband passed away 3 months ago. Her voice broke. When I returned to the United States, I discovered my daughter had disappeared, and my granddaughter had entered foster care. Emily quickly reviewed the paperwork. Everything appeared legitimate. Judge Whitmore looked thoughtful. Mrs. Carter, may I ask a difficult question? You may. Why didn't your daughter contact you? The courtroom became silent again. Eleanor closed her eyes. Because she blamed me. For what? I begged her to leave an abusive relationship. She believed I was trying to control her. We stopped speaking. She wiped away a tear. It was the greatest mistake of my life. Lily quietly listened, holding Samuel's hand. She didn't understand everything, but she understood sadness. She looked at Eleanor. Were you looking for me? The older woman immediately nodded. Every single day. You were? I hired investigators. I contacted hospitals. I searched shelters. I visited every agency I could find. I only learned yesterday that you were here. Samuel remained silent. He wasn't angry. He wasn't jealous. He simply watched Lily, because this decision wasn't about him. It was about her. Judge Whitmore turned toward Emily. Has Child Protective Services verified Mrs. Carter's identity? Emily nodded. Preliminary verification confirms she is Lily's biological grandmother. The judge sighed. Then legally, we must consider her petition. Samuel quietly lowered his eyes. He had expected this. Sometimes life offered hope, only to take it away. Lily noticed his expression. She tugged gently on his sleeve. Are you leaving? Samuel forced a smile. No, sweetheart. But she came. Yes. Does that mean you don't want me anymore? The question stunned everyone. Samuel immediately knelt beside her. Oh, Lily? He gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Nothing could make me stop wanting you. If your grandmother truly loves you, I'll be happy. She frowned. But I'll miss you. His smile trembled. I'll miss you too. Lily suddenly threw her arms around him again. I don't want to lose another grandpa. Across the room, Eleanor quietly cried. She realized something painful. She had arrived carrying biology. Samuel had arrived carrying love. And in Lily's heart, love had arrived first. Judge Whitmore looked at Eleanor. Mrs. Carter, if the court determines placement with you is appropriate, would you allow Mr. Brooks to remain part of Lily's life? Without hesitation, Eleanor answered. Absolutely. Everyone looked surprised. She smiled through tears. I've watched them for only 20 minutes. She looked directly at Samuel. And I can already see something that little girl has been missing for years. What is that? The judge asked. A grandfather. Samuel looked down, overwhelmed. Eleanor continued. I don't want to take that away from her. The courtroom softened. For the first time, this didn't feel like a battle. It felt like two lonely hearts trying to give one little girl the family she deserved. But Judge Whitmore wasn't finished. There is still one question. He looked toward Eleanor. Why did your daughter never list you as an emergency contact? Eleanor's face turned pale. There may be something I haven't told the court. Everyone waited. She reached into her purse with trembling hands, then pulled out an old envelope. I found this after my daughter's disappearance. It was addressed to Lily, but I couldn't bear to open it. She handed it to the judge. Across the front, written in faded handwriting, were the words, For my daughter, when she's old enough to understand why I left. The courtroom fell silent once again. No one knew what was inside, but everyone sensed that the letter was about to reveal a secret, capable of changing everything they believed about Lily's past. No one in the courtroom moved. The old envelope rested in Judge Harold Whitmore's hands as though it weighed 100 pounds. Its edges were yellowed with age. The seal had never been broken. Across the front, written in neat blue ink, were the words, For my daughter, Lily, when she's old enough to understand why I left. Judge Whitmore looked toward Eleanor. Mrs. Carter, you've never opened this? She slowly shook her head. No, I couldn't. I was afraid that if I read her final words, I'd lose the last piece of my daughter. The judge nodded respectfully. He then looked toward Emily Sanders. As Lily's legal representative, do you believe it's appropriate to read this letter today? Emily glanced at Lily. The little girl sat beside Samuel, holding his large weathered hand with both of hers. Emily answered softly. I believe she deserves the truth. Judge Whitmore looked at Samuel. Mr. Brooks? Samuel's voice was calm. Children deserve honesty. The judge carefully opened the envelope. The sound of the paper unfolding echoed through the silent courtroom. He adjusted his glasses and began to read. My precious Lily, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep the promise I made to you. I told you I was going to buy groceries. That wasn't the truth. I lied because I didn't want to scare you. I'm so sorry. Lily looked confused. Mommy lied? Samuel squeezed her hand gently. The judge continued reading. You deserve to know who your mother really was. Not the woman people will remember. The woman I wanted to be. Several people quietly wiped away tears. When you were born, you saved my life. Before you came into this world, I had already decided I didn't want to live anymore. But then I held you, and suddenly I had a reason to fight. Eleanor covered her face. She had never known her daughter felt that way. I tried to protect you from your father. He was angry. He was dangerous. Every time I tried to leave, he found us. Emily's expression changed. That detail had never appeared in any official records. The day I left you wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because someone warned me that he had found our address. If he found me, he would find you too. The courtroom became perfectly still. Judge Whitmore continued. I believed the safest place for you was somewhere he could never find. I thought if I disappeared, he would stop searching. Samuel lowered his head. The pain in those words was almost unbearable. If I made the wrong choice, please forgive me. Every birthday, every Christmas, every single day, I loved you. Judge Whitmore paused for a moment before reading the final page. His voice became quieter. One more thing. If someday a kind person chooses to love you, please don't push them away because you're afraid they'll leave. Real love doesn't run away. Real family isn't only the people who give you life. Sometimes, it's the people who choose to stay. I pray you find those people. Love forever, Mom. The courtroom remained silent. No one spoke for nearly a minute. Even the bailiff quietly wiped tears from his eyes. Lily looked up at Samuel. So, my mommy loved me? Samuel smiled through tears. More than anything. Then why didn't she come back? Samuel thought carefully before answering. Sometimes adults make impossible choices. They hope they're protecting the people they love. It doesn't always work the way they planned. Lily hugged her rabbit. I wish she could tell me herself. So do I, Samuel whispered. Eleanor slowly walked toward Lily. She knelt carefully in front of her granddaughter. I'm so sorry. I failed your mother. And I failed you. Lily studied her face. Children had a remarkable way of seeing sincerity. Were you sad too? Eleanor nodded. Every single day. Lily quietly reached out her tiny hand. It's okay. The older woman broke into tears. She gently held Lily's hand, overwhelmed by the forgiveness of a child who had every reason to be angry. Judge Whitmore cleared his throat. The letter answers many questions. But it also raises another. Emily looked toward him. What question, Your Honor? If Lily's father was truly dangerous. He paused. Where is he now? Before anyone could answer, the courtroom doors suddenly opened. A deputy sheriff hurried inside carrying a folder marked confidential. He walked directly to the judge and whispered something into his ear. Judge Whitmore's face changed instantly. What? The deputy nodded gravely. Judge Whitmore looked slowly toward Lily, then toward Samuel, finally toward Eleanor. He took a deep breath. It appears Lily's father has just been found. The entire courtroom gasped. But the deputy's next sentence was even more shocking. Your Honor. He's asking to see his daughter. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. No one breathed. No one spoke. 5-year-old Lily looked around in confusion. She tugged gently on Samuel's sleeve. "Grandpa?" Samuel smiled softly. "Yes, sweetheart?" "What's a father?" The innocent question shattered every heart in the room. Samuel swallowed hard. "A father," he paused, searching for words a child could understand, "is supposed to be someone who loves you, protects you, and helps you grow." Lily tilted her head. "Like you?" Samuel's eyes filled with tears. "I try my best." Judge Whitmore removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes before turning to the deputy sheriff. "You said Lily's biological father has been located?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Where is he now?" "He's waiting in a conference room downstairs." The judge frowned. "How did he find out about today's hearing?" The deputy handed him a report. "A local news station aired a brief story this morning about the adoption hearing. Someone recognized Lily's name and contacted our office." Emily Sanders looked concerned. "Has he been investigated?" "Yes." The deputy nodded. "He has no outstanding warrants, no recent criminal charges." "But—" He hesitated. "He served 8 years in prison." The courtroom grew tense again. "For what offense?" Judge Whitmore asked. "Aggravated assault." Lily quietly squeezed Samuel's hand tighter. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the fear in everyone's faces. Judge Whitmore spoke carefully. "Bring him in." A minute later, the courtroom doors opened once again. A tall man in his early 40s stepped inside. His clothes were simple. His face was weathered. His dark hair showed streaks of gray far earlier than expected. But it was his eyes that caught everyone's attention. They were filled with regret. The moment he saw Lily, he stopped walking. His lips trembled. Tears rolled silently down his face. "So," he whispered, "that's my little girl." Lily looked at him curiously. "Do I know you?" The man slowly shook his head. "No, I don't think you do." Judge Whitmore addressed him firmly. "State your name." "Michael Carter." "You are claiming to be Lily's biological father?" "Yes, Your Honor." DNA records and hospital documents were handed to the court. The evidence confirmed it. Michael Carter was indeed Lily's father. The room remained silent. Judge Whitmore spoke again. "Mr. Carter, you've been absent from your daughter's life for nearly 5 years. Explain." Michael closed his eyes. "When Lily was born, I wasn't the man I should have been. I drank. I fought. I lost control of my temper." He looked toward Eleanor. "My wife left because she was trying to protect Lily." Eleanor nodded quietly. "It was true," Michael continued. "The night they disappeared, I was arrested. I spent years blaming everyone except myself." His voice cracked. "Then prison forced me to face the truth. I had destroyed my own family." Emily asked carefully, "What happened after your release?" "I entered rehabilitation. I've been sober for 6 years. I attend counseling every week. I mentor young men leaving prison. I own a small auto repair shop." He placed several certificates and recommendation letters before the judge. Every one of them described the same thing. A man who had completely changed. Judge Whitmore studied the documents. "They're impressive." Michael nodded. "But they don't erase what I did." He looked toward Lily. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I only wanted one chance. To tell her I'm sorry." Lily stared at him. "You look sad." Michael smiled through tears. "I am." "Did somebody hurt you?" He nodded. "Yes." "Who?" He looked directly into her innocent eyes. "I did." The courtroom became silent again. Lily didn't understand. Samuel gently explained. "He means he made bad choices." Lily thought for a long moment, then asked, "Can people stop making bad choices?" Samuel smiled. "They can, if they truly want to." Lily looked back at Michael. "Do you want to?" Michael answered immediately. "More than anything." She studied him for several seconds, then quietly picked up her stuffed rabbit. She walked across the courtroom until she stood in front of him. Michael held his breath. Lily extended the rabbit toward him. "This is Buttons." Michael looked confused. "You can hold him." "Why?" "Because when I get scared, Buttons helps." She smiled softly. "You look scared." The courtroom dissolved into tears. Even the deputy sheriff quietly turned away. Michael accepted the old stuffed rabbit with shaking hands. He hugged it against his chest as tears streamed freely down his face. "I've never received a greater gift." Lily smiled. "You can give him back later." Michael nodded. "I promise." Judge Whitmore watched the exchange in silence. Finally, he spoke. "Mr. Carter, the court recognizes your efforts to rebuild your life. But this hearing isn't about rewarding your progress. It's about protecting Lily." Michael nodded respectfully. "I understand. I won't ask for custody." The courtroom looked surprised. "I won't even ask her to call me Dad." He turned toward Samuel. Instead, he walked slowly across the room, stopping in front of the elderly man. Then, to everyone's astonishment, Michael held out his hand. "Mr. Brooks." Samuel looked up. Michael's voice trembled. "Thank you. For loving my daughter when I wasn't worthy of being her father." Samuel slowly stood. Instead of shaking Michael's hand, he embraced him. The courtroom watched in silence. Samuel whispered, "It's never too late to become the man she deserves." Michael broke down crying. For the first time in many years, he believed redemption might actually be possible. But just as hope began filling the courtroom clerk rushed toward Judge Whitmore carrying another file. "Your Honor." The judge looked up. "What is it?" She swallowed nervously. "We've received an anonymous package." "What's inside?" She slowly opened it. A photograph slipped onto the judge's desk. His face turned pale. "Good Lord." Emily leaned forward. "What is it?" Judge Whitmore stared at the picture in disbelief. "It was taken the day Lily's mother disappeared." On the back of the photograph, someone had written just 6 chilling words. "The truth is not what you think." The courtroom fell silent once again. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harold Whitmore held the old photograph carefully, as though one wrong move might erase the answers everyone had been searching for. "Where did this come from?" he asked. The court clerk shook her head. "It was delivered to the courthouse reception 10 minutes ago. No return address. No signature. Only this envelope." The judge examined it. Plain brown paper. No fingerprints visible. Just one handwritten sentence. "Before you decide Lily's future, learn the whole truth." Emily Sanders stepped closer. "May I see the photograph?" The judge nodded. She stared at it, her eyes widening. It showed a gas station security camera image from the day Lily's mother, Sarah Carter, had disappeared. Sarah stood beside her old blue sedan. 5-year-old Lily was asleep in the back seat, hugging her stuffed rabbit. But that wasn't what shocked Emily. Standing several feet away, hidden beneath a baseball cap, was another person? A man, watching them. Judge Whitmore looked toward Michael. "Do you recognize him?" Michael studied the photograph for several long seconds. Then his face turned pale. "I know him." The courtroom became still. "Who is he?" the judge asked. Michael swallowed hard. "His name is Victor Hayes." Emily quickly searched through the case records. "There is no Victor Hayes mentioned anywhere." "There wouldn't be," Michael replied. "He wasn't family. He was the man I owed money to." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Michael lowered his head in shame. "Before I went to prison, I had gambling debts. Victor collected those debts. He wasn't the kind of man you could simply walk away from." Judge Whitmore's voice became firm. "Are you saying your wife was running from him as well?" Michael nodded slowly. "I didn't realize it until years later. He threatened Sarah. He threatened Lily. He told me that if I couldn't pay, my family would." The room fell silent. Eleanor covered her mouth in horror. "My daughter never told me." Michael's eyes filled with regret. "She was trying to protect everyone." Emily looked back at the photograph. If Victor was following Sarah that day, then her disappearance may not have been voluntary. The possibility changed everything. Judge Whitmore immediately addressed the deputy sheriff. "Reopen the missing person investigation." "Yes, Your Honor." "Find Victor Hayes." The deputy nodded and hurried from the courtroom. Lily quietly climbed into Samuel's lap. She had listened to words she couldn't fully understand. But she understood one thing. Everyone looked frightened. She whispered, "Grandpa." Samuel kissed the top of her head. "I'm here. Is Mommy still lost?" Samuel's heart broke. We don't know yet. Can we find her? He looked into her hopeful little eyes. I promise we'll never stop looking. Lily smiled faintly. Okay. Across the room, Michael watched the scene with tears in his eyes. He walked slowly toward Samuel. I owe you more than I can ever repay. Samuel shook his head. You don't owe me. You owe her. Michael looked at Lily. I know. I plan to spend the rest of my life earning that chance. Just then, the courtroom doors opened again. The deputy sheriff returned, this time with 2 detectives. One of them carried an old evidence box covered in dust. Your Honor, the detective said, we searched the cold case archives. He placed the box on the judge's bench. Sarah Carter's case wasn't completely abandoned. There was one piece of evidence investigators could never explain. He carefully opened the box. Inside was a small silver locket. Emily picked it up. It has Lily's initials engraved on it. Lily's eyes grew wide. I've seen that before. Everyone turned toward her. You have? She nodded. It was around Mommy's neck. When? The last day. The courtroom held its breath. Lily closed her eyes, trying to remember. Mommy kissed me. She gave me buttons. Then she took off her necklace. What happened next? Emily asked gently. Lily frowned. A man came. What man? He wore a black hat. Samuel and Michael exchanged worried glances. Did Mommy know him? Lily shook her head. She looked scared. What did he say? Lily squeezed her rabbit tightly. He said... Her tiny voice became almost a whisper. You should have stayed quiet. A chill swept through the courtroom. The detectives looked at one another. One of them spoke quietly. That's the same phrase another witness reported hearing. 20 years ago, in an unsolved extortion case connected to Victor Hayes, Judge Whitmore's expression hardened. This is no longer just a custody hearing. It may be the key to solving a long unsolved crime. Outside the courtroom, sirens suddenly echoed through the streets. Moments later, the deputy received a call on his radio. He looked toward the judge. They found Victor Hayes. Alive? The deputy nodded. Yes, Your Honor. But there's something else. What is it? He says... The deputy hesitated. He's willing to tell the truth. But only if... Everyone leaned forward. Samuel Brooks is present during the interview. Samuel looked stunned. What happened to Sarah Carter? Victor's eyes immediately filled with shame. I never wanted to hurt her. Then tell us. Victor nodded. Michael owed money. I was ordered to pressure him. But Sarah refused to tell us where he was. So you followed her? Yes. The day she disappeared? I confronted her at the gas station. He paused. I demanded money. She laughed. She said... Victor smiled sadly. You'll never touch my daughter. Samuel listened without interrupting. Victor continued. She handed Lily to a woman. Emily frowned. What woman? Anun, from St. Anne's Children's Mission. Everyone looked confused. Victor continued. Sarah had arranged a safe place for Lily days earlier. She knew someone was following her. Michael covered his face. Oh, Sarah. Victor's voice cracked. I argued with her. She refused to tell me where Lily had gone. Then, he stopped. Unable to continue, Samuel quietly asked. What happened? Victor whispered. A black SUV pulled into the parking lot. I thought it belonged to my boss. It didn't. 3 armed men got out. The detectives exchanged nervous glances. Victor continued. They weren't there for money. They were there for Sarah. What did you do? I ran. Shame covered his face. I left her. I was a coward. The room remained silent. I heard her scream, but I never looked back. Tears streamed down Victor's face. I've regretted that moment every single day. The lead detective asked, Did you ever learn who those men were? Victor nodded. Years later, they worked for a human trafficking organization. The room froze. But Sarah... Victor looked directly at Samuel. She escaped. Everyone stared. What? I found out 6 months later. She escaped them, but she disappeared under federal witness protection. Michael stood up. She's alive? Victor nodded slowly. As far as I know? Yes. The detectives looked stunned. One immediately picked up his phone. "If this is true, we've been searching the wrong way for years," Samuel whispered. "And Lily's mother may still be alive." Back at the courthouse, Lily was coloring in a children's waiting room. She had drawn 3 people holding hands. Emily smiled. "Who's this?" Lily pointed proudly. "That's me." "And this?" "My grandpa." "And this?" "My daddy." Emily smiled. "What about your grandma?" Lily giggled. "I need a bigger paper." At that exact moment, Samuel walked back into the courthouse. The instant Lily saw him, she ran as fast as her little legs could carry her. "You came back!" Samuel knelt and hugged her tightly. "I told you I would." Judge Whitmore entered the room moments later. His expression was unlike anything they'd seen before. Hope. Real hope. He looked at everyone gathered. "I've just spoken with federal authorities. They've agreed to reopen Sarah Carter's case immediately." Michael held his breath. "Do they think she's alive?" The judge nodded. "There is now a credible possibility." Lily looked up. "Does that mean, Mommy might still come home?" No one could answer, because just then, the courtroom doors opened once more. A U.S. Marshal stepped inside carrying a sealed folder. He looked directly at Judge Whitmore. "Your Honor, we've identified a woman living under witness protection." He slowly placed a recent photograph on the table. Everyone leaned forward. The photograph showed a smiling woman standing beside a garden. She looked older. Her hair was shorter. But there was no mistake. It was Sarah Carter. Alive. The courtroom erupted in tears. But the marshal raised one hand. "There's one problem." Judge Whitmore looked up. "What is it?" The marshal answered quietly. "She has no idea that her daughter survived." The courtroom was silent. No one could take their eyes off the photograph. Lying on Judge Harold Whitmore's desk, it was Sarah Carter. Older. Her hair, once long and chestnut brown, was now cut short and streaked with silver. Gentle lines framed her face, but her warm smile remained the same. Lily stared at the picture. She whispered softly, "That's Mommy." Samuel squeezed her little hand. "Yes, sweetheart." Tears filled Lily's eyes. "Can I hug her now?" Before anyone could answer, the U.S. Marshal stepped forward. "I've already contacted the Witness Protection Office. They've informed Ms. Carter that new evidence has been uncovered." Judge Whitmore asked quietly, "Does she know about Lily?" The marshal smiled. "She does now." "What did she say?" The marshal looked down at the message in his hand. Then he read it aloud. "For 7 years, I believed my little girl had been killed because of me. Every birthday, I bought her a present I could never give. Every Christmas, I wrote her a letter I could never send. If she's alive, please tell her I never stopped loving her. And if she'll let me, I'd like to come home." There wasn't a dry eye left in the courtroom. Michael covered his face as tears streamed through his fingers. Eleanor quietly sobbed. Even the deputy sheriff turned away to hide his emotions. Lily looked confused. "Mommy thought I was gone?" Samuel nodded gently. "Yes, but I'm here." "You are? Then somebody should tell her." Everyone smiled through tears. 3 days later, the courthouse had been transformed. Not for a trial, but for a reunion. Judge Whitmore had arranged for the courtroom to remain closed to the public. Only family. Only those who had walked beside Lily through her journey. Emily Sanders held Lily's hand. "Are you nervous?" Lily nodded. "What if she doesn't know me?" Emily smiled. "A mother's heart never forgets." The courtroom doors slowly opened. A woman stepped inside. Her hands trembled. Her eyes searched the room desperately. Then, she saw Lily. The little girl stared back. Neither of them moved. For several seconds, the world seemed to stop. Sarah whispered. "Lily." The little girl tilted her head. "Mommy?" Sarah broke into tears. She fell to her knees. "My baby?" Lily ran. Not walking, not hesitating. Running. She threw herself into her mother's arms. The hug lasted a long time. No one spoke. There were no words big enough for that moment. Sarah kissed Lily's hair over and over. "I'm so sorry. I looked for you." "I never stopped." Lily held her mother's face in both tiny hands. "I knew you'd come back." Every heart in the room broke and healed at the same time. A new beginning. After the reunion, Sarah slowly stood and looked around the courtroom. Her eyes stopped on Samuel Brooks. The elderly man quietly smiled. Sarah walked toward him. "You must be Samuel." He nodded. "I am." She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tightly. "Thank you for giving my daughter something I couldn't." Samuel shook his head gently. "No, I simply protected what already belonged to you." Sarah smiled through tears. "She told me something." "What was that?" "She said, Grandpa always comes back." Samuel laughed softly. "I tried." Sarah reached into her purse. She removed a small gift box. "I've carried this for years." She opened it. Inside was an old silver pocket watch. "My father gave this to me before he died. I want you to have it." Samuel looked surprised. "I can't accept this." Sarah closed his hand around it. "Please, my father always said, the greatest measure of a man isn't what he owns. It's the lives he changes. You changed ours." Samuel could no longer hold back his tears. "Michael's promise." Michael approached Sarah slowly. "I don't expect forgiveness." Sarah looked into his eyes. "I won't pretend the past didn't happen." He nodded. "I know. But Lily deserves two parents who can stand in the same room without hate." Michael broke down crying. "I'll spend the rest of my life becoming the father she deserves." Sarah smiled gently. "Then let's begin today." They shook hands, not as husband and wife, but as two parents choosing their daughter's future over their painful past. 6 months later. Spring had arrived. Samuel's little farmhouse was no longer quiet. Lily spent every weekend there. They planted tomatoes in the garden, built birdhouses, read bedtime stories, and every Saturday morning, Samuel made blueberry pancakes. Lily insisted they were the best in America. Sarah laughed every time she heard that. Michael rebuilt old bicycles with Lily in the garage. Eleanor became famous for her apple pies. For the first time in many years, everyone sat around the same dinner table. Not because life had been perfect, but because they had chosen forgiveness over bitterness. 1 year later, Judge Harold Whitmore received an invitation in the mail. It simply read, "Please join us for Family Day." When he arrived at Samuel's farmhouse, he smiled. Children were running across the yard. Neighbors laughed together. Barbecue smoke drifted through the air. Lily spotted him immediately. "Judge Harold!" She ran and hugged him. "I have something to show you." She pulled him toward the porch. Hanging beside the front door was a wooden sign Samuel had carved. It read, "Family isn't always born. Sometimes it's chosen." Judge Whitmore smiled. "I think that's the truest thing I've ever read." Lily looked up at the people around her. Her mom, her dad, her grandma, her grandpa Samuel, Emily, Judge Whitmore, all laughing together. She whispered, "I have a really big family." Samuel smiled. "The biggest." She looked up at him. "Grandpa?" "Yes? Remember when the judge asked if anybody wanted me?" "I remember." She grinned. "I think everybody does now." Samuel kissed the top of her head. "They always would have. They just hadn't met you yet." The sun slowly set behind the farmhouse as laughter filled the air. The little girl who once believed no one wanted her had discovered the greatest truth of all. Love isn't measured by blood. It's measured by the people who choose to stay. And in choosing one another, they had all found the family they had been searching for. I thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share this video with your friends and family. Your support helps us continue creating emotional, inspiring stories that remind us of the power of hope, forgiveness, and unconditional love. See you in the next heartwarming story. God bless you and thank you for being part of our family.